Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And a very good evening to all of you, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Before I begin my address, I would like to extend my deepest appreciation to the organizers, the Cultural Economy Development Agency or Cendana, and the Perdana Fellows Alumni Association for putting together this much needed forum today. I praise the Almighty that we are able to gather for the Kuala Lumpur Creative Economy Forum 2021. I trust that you are all keeping well and safe during these difficult times. I still remember the early days when Malaysia was hit by the impact of COVID-19. Demoralized stakeholders, including those who were not under the purview of the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture, MOTAC, came to my office seeking help. This included the commercial musicians and theatre groups. This was the time when many groups in the economic chain had to look for aid and assistance as they need to be able to sustain during that unprecedented time. Many were truly lost, going through an unheard of dilemma. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Alhamdulillah, we went through painful times, but with everyone working together, directing one another towards the right path. Here we are, standing tall despite the challenges and slowly moving towards the recovery phase, inshallah. So, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to share some important information about the outlook of the tourism industry in Malaysia. MOTAC estimated a loss of 165 billion ringgit in tourism receipts for 2021 as international tourist arrivals fell from 26.1 million tourists in 2019 to 4.3 million in 2020. This was an 83% reduction. Similarly, domestic tourism numbers dropped nearly 45% between 2019 to 2020 due to the movement restrictions placed on the interstate travel. When it comes to arts and culture or cultural sector, between 2016 to 2020, revenue generated from activities, programs and products under the cultural sector amounted to 2.4 billion ringgit. Between 2016 to 2020, we had seen a consistent growth of between 62 to 77% year by year. However, the closure of the performing arts sector, cultural and museum venues, and physical distancing measures due to the Movement Control Orders or MCO had come of the unfortunate cost to many workers in the arts and culture industry. It impacted their livelihoods, social mobility, market access, and artistic freedom, which also affected the value chain of suppliers and service providers. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, globally, the creative economy accounts for 3% of global GDP, with cultural and creative industries generating more than 2,250 billion US dollars annually, and the sector employing more than 30 million people worldwide. In fact, the Asian Development Bank Institute or ADBI indicated that before the COVID-19 crisis, the creative economy was on pace to account for 10% of global GDP by 2030. Described as one of the world's most rapidly growing sectors by UNESCO, this is definitely a sector that we should be focusing on more in Malaysia. Relatedly, ladies and gentlemen, the creative industry is also renewable, sustainable, and a limitless resource as it hinges on the creativity of its creators. This differentiates the creative economy sector with more traditional economic sectors that are dependent on the extraction of natural resources. Simply put, the creative industry is better for our environment. And it is no surprise that 2021 was declared as the International Year of Creative Economy for Sustainable Development by the United Nations General Assembly. We have seen that the relationship between culture and tourism has been one of the major sources of tourism growth in recent decades. In fact, recently, MOTAC unveiled our National Tourism Policy 2020 to 2030, whereby focus is given to product augmentation strategies. A big part of this is our commitment towards cultural and heritage tourism, where we strengthen the preservation of Malaysia's tangible and intangible cultural heritage as valuable assets for showcasing the country's identity through creative tourism. This would add value to the existing tourist experiences through product development, strengthening enablers, and moving impediments. The recognition of UNESCO towards Mak Yong, Silat Dondang Sayang, and Wangkang marks a push towards an integrated approach to cultural tourism. This push was made possible from the collaboration between government, local councils, as well as the arts and culture ecosystem on the ground. On a bigger scale, these commitments mean preserving cultural heritage through creative industry. With this, we aim to revitalize the cities and encourage economic growth. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, earlier today we heard the illuminating remarks of Honorable Ridwan Kamil and the amazing work he has done for West Java, in particular Bandung. Among others, he spoke about the need for institutional development that supports creative ecosystems. For Malaysia, we will soon see the launch of the National Cultural Policy, or DAKEN, under the purview of MOTAC, which will serve as guidance for the development and cultivation of the arts, cultural and heritage matters in Malaysia. The policy upholds the spirit and principles of the National Cultural Policy 1971 and supports the shared prosperity concept to build a nation that is progressive, prosperous, yet maintains its national identity. Setting a pathway towards a developed nation with cultured citizens, DAKEN outlines 4 principles and 7 key thrusts to ensure the cultivation of creative and cultured individuals, competitive economy, as well as conducive environment. This policy is the point of reference to guide all parties involved, including cultural stakeholders, inclusive in nature that is in line with the Sustainable Development Goals. To ensure the policy's success and relevance, the strategies and action plan will be reviewed within 5 years in terms of program implementation and activities by the government, private institutions, non-governmental organizations, and the general public. In general, the policy's implementation will involve 4 major institutions, namely the family institution, educational, societal, and services. The world has changed tremendously, and our approach to culture must change. We must be innovative and transformative to ensure our cultures continue to be preserved among our young ones. This consideration is even more pivotal now as consumer demand for the arts and culture might have shifted after the pandemic. For us here today, my question to you is this: how can we scale up quality and move forward in the creative economy? What can be done better, and what needs to change moving forward? As with most economic sectors, the creative economy is no different in that we will need a whole of society approach to make it a success. Responsibility for this does not lie solely in the hands of the government, but rather it is shared among all of us. For our part as policymakers, we will ensure a regulatory environment that is conducive for the arts and culture, and one that supports rather than stifles creativity. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we have dealt with difficult cards for the past 2 years. However, I believe that we are approaching the end of the tunnel, echoing the Prime Minister's announcement on Sunday, the 10th of October 2021, that interstate travel is now allowed as our vaccination rates hit more than 90%. We are hoping this means a return to normalcy, or at least what passes as normal during these times. Activities can be resumed soon along with our efforts to stimulate the economy, especially to start contributing to our arts and culture industry that is a people-based economy. As I close, I would like to thank the participants of KUL.CEF. Thank you for allowing me to share some of my thoughts on this pertinent topic today. To the organizers, my sincere gratitude and congratulations to both Chandana and the Perdana Fellows Alumni Association for putting together this marvelous event. On that note, I therefore officially close the Kuala Lumpur Creative Economy Forum and hope that we will meet next year physically in Kuala Lumpur. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good evening.